My name is Georgina Stevens. I am one of the assistant managers at Francis Clark and work not directly with Tom, but I do some things with Tom. I primarily work with the agricultural sector, but as you probably know, a lot of the agricultural sector have holiday accommodation, which is also where I sort of can offer some expertise here. We also farm and have holiday and camping at home. So I've experienced the other side of it all on the pandemic, and it all just falls on its face very, very quickly. My role has very much shifted in the last 4 years over to the IT side of accounting alongside my day-to-day job, and it has been a great experience getting to know all sorts of businesses of all shapes and sizes, and I have met some truly creative people along the way. So if hopefully that changes, so that's obviously me. Apologies, I haven't got a camera, which is a great excuse. In 2019, we saw the introduction of making tax digital for VAT. I'm just sort of, obviously my title came along of cash flow management as well, and these two I think go hand in hand really well. But the introduction of making tax digital for VAT, and then April 2023, we'll see the introduction of making tax digital for self-assessment. I'm going to give you a very brief overview of this at the end because it affects a lot more people than they'd like to think. And I think anybody who trades a limited company in 2026 will potentially see making tax digital for corporation tax, but we won't dwell on this too much as the goalposts keep moving. The government keep delaying it. Things. I think MTD was supposed to come in a lot earlier than 2019. So the reasons people have moved across to cloud accounting software, basically due to the pandemic, having to get their accounting teams at home, keep the businesses that were able to keep running, obviously keep them going, and also now, which I know is one of Tom's favourite things, is to accommodate hybrid working. It seems to be the new buzzword in a lot of industries at the moment. And you can imagine this was really fun, training people on Teams and Zoom. So that might be where my efficiency came there of getting my presentation going a bit quicker. So growing and enhancing relationships with accountants and third parties, believe it or not. So if you work with somebody like Keris, who we had our first talk from, having instant access to your figures, make your year-end process with us, your accountants, better and more efficient, and it's easier to spark those conversations. So I know when I was in the office, when the pandemic first hit, Tom was never available, constantly on the phone, and he had people's financial information at his fingertips. This is what you need to do, or this is what we can do, or don't panic as much as some people did. Because what they had before wasn't fit for purpose, as we've said in the first two presentations, costs are also going up. They feel like they're always going up. Whether your previous software was outdated, far too expensive, and like a lot of things, you're paying for quite a big accounts package when actually you only use 10% of it. And obviously with businesses, those cost savings are key. Workload. Some older desktop-based softwares create a lot more work than they need to. I've moved some very large businesses over to cloud-based, which one I think which came contact through Tom actually, enabled 2 members of staff who were supposed to be part-time actually keep their part-time hours, therefore reducing their workload, and the directors had to pay less overtime, so everybody was happy. And also Keris touched on actually like get that work-life balance back, because sometimes when you are in business you feel like you never have any away time. As a farmer, I totally get it. So yeah. So I've been asked to talk today about sort of cloud accounting and how it goes hand in hand with cash flow management. Positive cash flow is obviously key to running any business, whether you're making jewelry to sell at a local market or you're running a 400-room hotel on the Nuki coast. Without positive cash flow and good planning, any business will struggle and eventually fail, potentially. In order to have good cash flow, we need to make sure the input, we need to get the basics right and make sure we can make accurate projections. And for this, we need to get the front end right. And yesterday when I was writing this presentation, I used the analogy of to make a great cake, you need good ingredients, obviously on the approach to lunchtime. So we've got some logos here in front of us, which are the 3 main softwares that I work with. So I work with people who have got, say, 1 holiday let, to people that I helped somebody the other day who's got 45 holiday lets. So they can be for very small businesses to very large businesses, and there are also more substantial packages available for those big hotel chains that might need some assistance. So getting the right accounting software is crucial, and it is important that you work with your advisor and your accounts team, ensure that everybody is on board and happy with the process. Human beings, it seems, we don't like change. If I stormed into your accounts team with my size 10s and just said, right, we're changing today, and nobody had been told about it, you wouldn't be very popular. And as we've touched on again, that staff, no matter what industry you're in, we're struggling to find them. So we want to keep everybody happy, and we need to make sure that the software you choose actually works well with what you're doing. Getting this right can help you make well-informed decisions about your business going forward and quickly when the need arises, i.e. when the pandemic hit. So I'm going from left to right. We have the very popular Xero, which is the one I implement most, based in New Zealand. Like I said, one of the most popular, and really good, nice and easy, and speaks English as opposed to accountant, which is what a lot of people want. QuickBooks, very powerful online accounting software. It implemented a few less times than Xero, but it is very good. It is actually American, so it does talk a little bit more accountant language than we sometimes might like, but it's very good, and both of those run quite well alongside holiday cottage booking systems. This is one of the other reasons I've moved people over. And Sage, one thing I would say with Sage is do not be fooled that the Sage online software is as good as their desktop software. Their desktop software is absolutely fantastic. Their online offering isn't as good. Like I said, there is some other packages available if you're need something slightly more robust, but the Xero and QuickBooks do satisfy some of the larger options. Many of these have efficiencies built into them to make your life easier, make your accounts team's life easier. So we've got the likes of bank feeds. So every day your bank transactions from yesterday will drop into the software waiting for you to match them off. Can be very useful when setting up sort of a basic holiday let accounting system, so you can do your tax return at the end of the year. We don't need to do the whole ledger way of doing it. Again, you can put credit cards into it. You never know. I know, especially having a holiday let myself, you can be out and about, you see something nice, all that will go really nice in it. You've got the wrong card on you, got the credit card there, great. Bring those feeds in. For anybody slightly larger who might have an EPOS system, quite often these 3 will connect to your EPOS system, reducing the amount of processing you need and the potential for human error. Where there are imports available and softwares talking to each other, we always try and encourage to use them because the less chance of any mistakes. And a couple of others, so batch payment upload, so you can pay multiple suppliers in one go, download a CSV and push it into your bank account. Online filing systems, contracts, sales invoices, useful documents, that sort of thing. So a lot of people buy something on hire purchase and then leave the documents in there to save me asking for them at the end of the year. All the softwares have quarterly updates, which I always recommend watching because they are updating things all the time. Whilst Tom touched on furlough in his presentation, the perks of a cloud software is that Xero and QuickBooks were able to react so quickly to the furlough scheme, and so you were able to do your furlough claims very quickly without having to wait for a download onto your desktop. Obviously, you might have been sat at home, you might not have been able to access the work computer. So just having that, so having it stored in the cloud is a real perk there. So another part of my role is to create what you call the app stack around your accounting software. So we don't always, these aren't relevant for everybody, and sometimes it's a little bit overkill, and sometimes you do not need apps for apps' sake. But there are things called receipt capture applications, which are really handy. Some of you may already use them, but it's basically where you take a picture of an invoice, it will extract the supplier, the date, the invoice reference, the net, the gross, and the VAT, and take away a lot of the processing for you, which can save you considerable amounts of time. This can be done via sort of mass upload on a scanner, or just taking a picture of a fuel receipt when you're filling the works van up with fuel that day. So we've got HubDoc, which is owned by Xero, which is essentially free, so it's always worth giving it a go. Dext is the Dext and Auto Entry are the two that we use when HubDoc isn't quite man enough for the job, and then Basecone is a whole other. It's like the big daddy of the receipt capture apps, and it also has if you're in a business that needs approval from managers before an invoice is processed, there's a built-in system for that. But I'll just show you what they. So here is a screenshot from HubDoc. You'll see that I have scanned an invoice in from SJ Andrews and Son, and the software has automatically pulled out the supplier, the invoice reference, the date, and you'll see in that bottom corner, it's also then extracted the relevant amounts for my VAT return, and then the green button that actually disappears off the screen is the publish button, and that is then waiting for me in my accounting software. All of them have an email address specific for them that you can then just forward it on, and it will start to do the extraction process for you. Really handy, family business, kids are out buying stuff for you, not very good at getting the receipts, fuel receipts. I know I spend half my life chasing my husband for fuel receipts. So yeah, and it's just building the right package for you. As I mentioned, like our phones have an app store, the accounting softwares have an app store. That there is an app for everything. You don't always need them, and sometimes when £5 a month doesn't sound too bad for something, when you then times that by 12 and like buy the 4 or 5 you added, that's quite a lot of money when you don't necessarily need them. So it's really important to build the one that's right, to get the ones that are right for you. I mentioned the great cake with great ingredients. So part of my job is to go into businesses, especially with newer clients that the partners find, is just make sure their makeup works for them, and where I can potentially go in and save them time and help them get it right, basically. So we've got the receipt capture software if it's relevant. We have then the other connected apps. So whether you have BrightPay, which is a payroll, expenses, so anybody who's got, not so much relevant in the tourism industry, but like a sales team and they're out and about and they treat people to look like they take clients for lunch, it encourages you to take a picture of the receipt there and then. A lot of places now will ask you, would you like an email receipt? I know if you go into Dunelm and you buy some sheets for your holiday cottage and they'll say, would you like an email receipt? Actually, that'd be really handy. It's a lot easier to find. So just having the right bits in place there. Accounting software, like we've talked about, and then for anybody slightly larger who's looking to do cash flow projections, you have then the 3 Fs, which are fluidly, futurally, and float. Try saying that after a few G&Ts. So they work on the information that you put in your accounting software. So you need, and this is where I sort of touched on that, you need to get the first bit right to actually get good results. They work off sort of regular bank payments, the due dates that you put on your invoices, and they're just predicting when you're going to spend money. like Tom's looked at, like we do sort of have a slightly moving platform because Easter changes every year. Obviously COVID hit, people were shut, that sort of thing. So they are good, but they should be used with a bit like a sat nav, used with common sense. And also there's the good old fashioned Excel spreadsheet, which I am a I do like. Okie dokie, I'm sort of skipping a few bits that as Tom overran a tiny bit. So, oh, let's go.
Georgina, Steve Moss is just asking if there's any tips on carbon accounting software.
I have been asked this question last week by one of our champions of Richard Wadman, who does our corporate finance director. And that is something our cloud team look into. So at Francis Clark, we have a team of about 15 or 16 of us that are looking at all the, because I know with the plastics coming in as well, it's just like looking at where we can try and utilize all the data in one place and then extract the things like that. So just to touch on this slide again. So last week I had a meeting with somebody who embedded Xero and HubDoc into their organization 2 years ago. He's a sole trade engineer, so not really relevant to this industry, but the concept is still the same. By taking that little bit more time over his bookkeeping and the processing, it has meant he can react to price changes a lot quicker. So Tom mentioned, like we've all said, like costs are going up all the time. But when you sort of like, if we look at the price of beef, for example, in a restaurant, for me, obviously, as a beef farmer, great. But for anybody who has got a restaurant, the price of steak and chips is going up all the time. And you want to make sure that you are actually passing the increases onto the customer as much as you possibly can. So by just taking that little bit more time, maybe looking at them a little bit more, you can save yourself quite considerable pounds. The partner that I mainly work for within Francis Clark likes to use it as the British cycling model. If you can shave off milliseconds everywhere, you can then actually make quite big savings there. And like, so the food is a prime example. And got plenty of friends that are chefs. They're actually very passionate about their ingredients and not necessarily gross profit margins. So it's just about working together and making sure you're actually achieving what you want. So on the horizon, now this is the bit I touched on earlier with regards to making tax digital for self-assessment. Now this is going to be a big impact in the tourism industry, whether you have got one holiday let or 10 holiday lets, or you have a campsite, a very like sort of on the 28-day 56 rule campsite on a farm, that sort of thing. Anybody who has, oh, there we go. So anybody who has income of over £10,000, which has been derived from self-employment, being a partner in a partnership, or property UK and overseas, will need to report their income and expenditure quarterly. And this is so obviously income and not profit, and it's done on the combination of businesses. So if I had £8,000 of self-employment and £8,000 of property income, obviously added together 16, so therefore I would have to report my income quarterly in a digital manner. We've looked at our our client base, and I think 80% of our self-assessment clients, our private tax clients, they have property, and they do tend to be a little bit older and maybe not as up to date with IT. So this is quite a big challenge facing us and Joe Public, not necessarily big business owners. So the idea being, you would then file quarterly returns, and then there would be a fifth return that is where we sort of envisage getting involved, that would then be like your tax return, which would be fileable. Would need filing by the 31st of January following the tax year. So yeah, oh dear, I do hear people say, but with the correct setup and the correct training and guidance, it's not something to be nervous of. We're here to help. I'm sort of jumped a bit on my slides there, and it isn't something to worry about. But it's just it's communicating the message of the sheer quantities of people this is going to affect. And obviously with property, tourism, holiday businesses, there's quite a lot of people that think, oh, my little holiday let down the road will be fine. But actually, and given Cornwall, a lot of us would have income of over £10,000 without actually trying too hard on a holiday let, especially with the holiday hosting companies putting the prices up quite a lot. But yeah, that sort of concludes my bit. So we're going to do them both together.
I think there was that question really about carbon accounting. Obviously, it's something that you're getting your heads around about what is the best way of doing it, and more importantly, probably the most efficient and accurate way of doing it.
Yeah.
Do you know what sort of timescale until you'll be able to advise people how best to do that? Because it's obviously a growing issue, but what you don't want is people to go off and not be able to do it correctly, or worse than that, have inaccuracy in it.
Yeah, I'm not sure on because we've got various projects in the pipeline, but we can, I don't know if Tom's got anything to add to that one, but from our point of view, we don't.
It's in process. Yeah. I agree with you. You don't want to go off half-cocked, so to speak. It's already here, though, for the larger businesses. They have to put the reporting in their financial records. So it would be well worth a business pulling down a large, if they think of a business in their sphere, and pull off their accounts and see what they say. So in terms of what's actually required of them, that's where we're at the moment. It's a discursive thing rather than an absolute quantum at the moment, although obviously the plastics tax is coming in is going to have a bit of a bearing on, well, maybe the raw suppliers of plastics in that case, but it is coming.